Coming up next on Hawaii Now, Congressman Neil Abercrombie looks at open ocean fish farming off Keahole Point and at the Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii. He says it's one of the ways Hawaii can become more self-sufficient.
We need to have a supply of not only energy independence, we need food independence as much as we can in this country.
He also travels to Ka'ahumanu Elementary School in Honolulu.
These are difficult times, particularly for the funding for HeadStart, and I know how important it is to you.
He meets with parents, children, and staff of a HeadStart preschool program as he fights to improve their funding. Then the congressman organizes an annual citizenship fair. Its popularity is growing, helping people to become naturalized U.S. citizens. And we'll go to the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives to see the congressman pay a special tribute to one of Hawaii's economic engines, the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard. That's ahead on Hawaii Now with Congressman Neil Abercrombie.
Kidding. And they're just now starting to spawn. So you might want to take a second and just look in here and you can get a feel for what we're looking at, and then we'll go up and feed them. We just got our first spawn, so there was a big celebration around here earlier this week, and when they spawn huge numbers. So.
Congressman Neil Abercrombie is visiting NELHA, the Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii, an innovative science and technology park in Kailua, Kona on Hawaii Island.
I'm enthusiastic about what you're doing here. There's exciting things, the business activity that's going on here. You're pioneers here.
One of NELHA's pioneering tenants is Kona Blue Water Farms, which is applying state-of-the-art aquaculture technology to hatch, raise, and harvest a Hawaiian yellowtail tuna the company brands as Kona Kampachi. It's a sashimi-grade fish that's marketed and sold to upscale restaurants and stores in Hawaii and the mainland. In a speech immediately before his visit to NELHA, Congressman Abercrombie tells the Kona Rotary Club Kona Blue's work is important because of what's happening to fish populations in the Pacific.
Because I sit on the Natural Resources Committee and was instrumental in getting both the Humpback Whale Sanctuary underway and in existence, and the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, which is now a sanctuary for the world, and will be safe for the world. In the course of events, in working on these two issues, I've come to learn a great deal about the Pacific and the Pacific fisheries. What we do know is that the fisheries out there in the Pacific are subject to waxing and waning because of the change in global climate, because of natural and aided and abetted by the actions of human beings in pumping more carbon dioxide into the air, carbon monoxide, the whole all industrial pollution into the air, adding to whatever changes may be occurring naturally. It turns out that the level of capacity that we know about where fishing is concerned, providing fish for human consumption, is very, very shaky, in the Pacific.
So that's the key.
Kona Blue says it's the first sustainable operation in the United States to grow fish in the open ocean from an integrated hatchery without depleting wild fisheries or harming the environment. The company operates 8 large underwater cages, or ocean net pens, that reach 200 feet deep. The fish are fed sustainable feed and grown in some of the cleanest water on Earth off Keahole Point.
We don't really want them that big because they get a little hard to handle in tanks, but this is a perfect size. And these fish, collectively, what do we got? About 150 broodstock here, and we get spawns almost every day.
Kona Blue says in the past year, Kona Kampachi has received rave reviews from prominent chefs nationwide for its rich, buttery flavor, adding that the fish is healthy, pure, and rich in omega-3 fatty acids with no detectable mercury. The fish is prized by chefs for its flavor and texture and is served as sashimi and cooked in a variety of ways. The fish has also won a rating as a good alternative by Monterey Bay Aquarium's Seafood Watch program, a leader in evaluating fisheries and sustainable aquaculture. Kona Blue says its core mission is to expand the environmentally sound production of the world's finest fish. So in consultation with Monterey Bay Aquarium and the nonprofit Environmental Defense Fund, Kona Blue has reformulated its feed to further reduce the reliance on wild-caught fish meal and fish oil, which improves the sustainability of the company's operations. Seafood Watch says the shift away from a reliance on wild-caught fish meal and fish oil is a pioneering move and a huge step forward for the aquaculture industry.
But we know very, very little about inner space. Even though inner space constitutes more than 3/4 of the planet's surface, the ocean covers 3/4 of the planet's surface, we know very, very little about it. And so I'm here to tell you, particularly as our population expands and we're worried about whether or not we're getting contaminated fish, for food, and we have to get it elsewhere, we need to have a supply of not only energy independence, we need food independence as much as we can in this country. And one of the principal elements, particularly if we want good health, is nutritious fish. For the omega-3 oils, for the fact that it doesn't contain the same difficulties for the heart and obesity and all the other issues that are associated with red meat. Fish and fish products offer us an ideal opportunity for good health and for food independence. Now that means that to the degree and extent we can go from a business to an industry where fish are concerned in a way that emphasizes the environment and conservation of the resource, we need to do it. And that's where the Kampachi and perhaps other activities are going to be able to make a huge difference. We can fish farm.
Kona Blue's progress and success as the first ocean net pen farm is leading to expansion. The company in Hawaii began harvesting 3 years ago and produced 3,000 pounds of whole fish a week. That's up to 20,000 pounds today, and plans now call for the establishment of another operation in the Sea of Cortez off the coast of Mexico, which could increase production 5 times by the year 2012. Abercrombie says research and business activity at Nelha, like Kona Blue's fish farming, will go a long way in moving Hawaii and the nation toward food independence and fulfilling a growing need for marketable fish.
And it's, as I say, it's not just off in the clouds and good luck and you hope that somebody makes it for a few years and they disappear, too bad. I don't think so. I think you're on the cutting edge.
And what's more important to Congressman Abercrombie is the continuing fulfillment of NELHA's mission to develop and diversify Hawaii's economy through energy and ocean-related activities that are sensitive to the environment and culture. A lot more federal funding could bring in a lot more sunshine into this classroom for preschool children in the federal HeadStart program at Ka'ahumanu Elementary School in Makiki.
Thank you. Hey, give me a big hug, pal. All right, good, good. Wonderful.
Congressman Neil Abercrombie is calling for more funding, which is why he's come here to visit with HeadStart children, parents, and teachers.
We tend to think of school and forget about what gets us ready for school, which is Head Start and preschool. And the increase in the necessity for parents to have preschool and even pre-Head Start availability, and to have the kind of dedicated teachers and staff that will enable that to take place.
Abercrombie has come to see firsthand how well this Head Start class is working. The program prepares children and families living at the poverty level to enter kindergarten and school life.
We take care of the whole child. We don't just take care of academics, teaching the ABCs, numbers or whatever. We make sure the children are eating, because if you're hungry, you cannot learn. We make sure their ears, we have an audiologist that checks their ears, and we make sure the doctor checks their ears, because if you can't hear, you can't learn. We have a social worker that's assigned to every classroom, and we call them our family advocates. And the reason for that, if your parents are fighting at night, you cannot learn. Or if you're homeless, you cannot learn. We have nurses that check all their immunizations, make sure they're healthy children when they come into the classroom, and make sure that if they're out because they're sick, if the children are out for 3 days, our nurses give them a call, do a visit, talk to them somehow. We make sure our children don't get lost in our system.
I hope that the powers that be understand that HeadStart also plays a very important role in identifying or early identification of children with disabilities. And that's a very important aspect in helping the children to get a head start, you know, identifying early what their educational needs are, and then empowering both the parents and the child, you know, with what they need to overcome.
The program, with a successful track record in stopping the cycle of poverty in the United States, serves 3,000 low-income students in Hawaii. On Oahu, the program serves more than 1,600 students, with a staff of 300 serving 80 sites around the island and some homes. This program partners with Ka'ahumanu Elementary School, which educates children speaking 29 different languages. Head Start can help students bridge cultural gaps so children and families can advance academically and economically.
We teach the parents how to be good parents. We'll do parenting classes if they need. We'll do whatever. As the parents come into the program, they need to tell us what their goals are, and then we break those goals up into little steps.
In Hawaii, funding is especially critical. Head Start is struggling to retain qualified teachers. They've been leaving the program for better paying jobs at private preschools and the State Department of Education. Nationally, 63% of Head Start directors expect to lose staff because of pay issues. Others have had to cut staff. Meanwhile, many programs have had to reduce days of operation.
And yet, isn't it interesting that at the very beginning of life, where the kids are most malleable, and they're literally in their formative years, there are people who have the responsibility for it that are devalued by the greater society. I mean, obviously there needs to be more and better pay.
Congressman Abercrombie is part of a move in the U.S. House calling for a $1 billion increase for Head Start's national funding in fiscal year 2009. He told parents about the political battle the program faces. The president has proposed a budget that wouldn't allow the program to meet its requirements. This Hawaii lawmaker assured the parents that he'll be advocating for Head Start.
These are difficult times, particularly for the funding for Head Start. And I know how important it is to you. And I want you to know we're trying our best in Washington right now to get the president to understand that we have to invest in our children first, and that some of these other expenditures for war and all that we need to set aside and take care of the children.
There have been too many dark days budget-wise for this program, but the sun was definitely shining on Head Start on this day in Makiki.
You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Thank you.
This is Hawaii Now with Congressman Neil Abercrombie.
We take our citizenship kind of for granted, but for people who have to struggle to achieve it, to obtain it, to attain it, this is probably the most satisfying thing that I do in office.
That satisfaction for Congressman Neil Abercrombie comes from his participation in this annual citizenship fair. The congressman and his office staff lend their support to organize the fair, which helps some local residents get free help as they begin the process to become naturalized U.S. citizens.
Over and over in my office, we have immigration issues come up. And of course, issues mean people, individuals, and each individual story is different. So I became aware of the situation where there are a lot of people here who would like to be citizens, but it's really formidable to get started. So I thought I got together with some of the nonprofit groups like Naval, who help immigrants, the Immigration Center at the law school, the legal services folks, and the immigration lawyers themselves, and we thought we'll put on a fair. And we started, we were a little naive when we started. We didn't know how complicated it would be when we did it. But we started with 40 people. Now we try and bring 30 people together and have these fairs. And everybody gets together, volunteers. We try to pre-screen people, and we work with Candy Eye and other groups and nonprofit groups and bring people together. And we bring them here and we get them started on their citizenship. I mean, it's a thrill.
Congressman Neil Abercrombie's staff and 17 attorneys from the community are here. The volunteers come from the Loyal Immigrant Rights and Public Interest Legal Center, Volunteer Legal Services Hawaii, the William S. Richardson School of Law Immigration Law Clinic, and the American Immigration Lawyers Association Hawaii chapter.
I could do this every week. But as I say, they're volunteers. The immigration lawyers themselves volunteer their time. So we try to make it sensible. We try to make it so that we can handle it.
Have you served in the military?
The clients here have come to complete an application and to learn about the process of becoming a U.S. citizen, a process that can take months.
How long have you been there? About a year?
The help they're getting from the volunteers are the first steps, completing a 10-page application and organizing the necessary documents.
Mostly, it's people are afraid that they simply don't know how to get started. And there's lots of paperwork and a lot of things to be signed and gone through. So what we're trying to do is be helpful in that and to take some of the fear away and the anxiety away. When they come to these fairs, they know they're among friends. When we first did this a couple of years ago and we got into it, we were doing it all by hand. Now at least we're able to use computers and put it together. So we were pretty primitive ourselves when we got started. But we've learned and in the process, and we think that we're being a useful vehicle for people to become citizens.
What they aren't doing today, but will later in the process, is an interview with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and taking a written English test. And then there's a 96-question civics test.
We kid each other about, could we answer the questions they have to answer,
The clients know about the test and they're reminded and encouraged to study. Some get a little nervous about it. It's a test a lot of folks, not only citizens-to-be, would have to study. Congressman Abercrombie tries out the questions with some visitors at the fair.
Name the amendments that guarantee or address voting rights. 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th. Can you name, okay, here's the one that'll get you. Can you name either the 12 states that signed the Constitution or the 13 original states?
I would say, what? It's got to be New York, Virginia.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Right. What?
Maryland.
Maryland.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Hampshire, Delaware.
Right.
Virginia. I don't think Maine was.
Virginia.
I said
No, Maine is not.
Maine was not, right?
Mm-mm.
So,
Go south.
let's see.
North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Yeah, Georgia, right from the beginning, right. Pretty good. That's pretty good. Good for you guys.
Congressman Abercrombie says there's a lot to be learned from the people who come to the fair, something that goes beyond the paperwork, the applications, and the civics test.
It is amazing, the struggle that people have gone through just to get here. It's a story that in terms of ancestry, particularly for Hawaii, everybody's got a story. Everybody in their background in Hawaii has come from someplace else, including the original Hawaiians, after all. And so what it means to me, and there's different stories that have come forward, individual stories, families being brought together, people who were afraid that they wouldn't be able to do it, people who worked hard but really didn't fit in and wanted desperately to fit in. What happens is it reminds us about what Aloha is all about, which is our diversity defines us rather than divides us. And what you find is people from all walks of life coming to these fairs who have one thing in common. They desperately want to become citizens of the United States. They want to take all of their background, all of the foundation of ancestry, culture, ethnicity, nationality that forms their background, and filter that through the Aloha spirit of joining together, being together, reaching out to one another, and to become a citizen. It sounds corny, but let me tell you something. It fills you up with a real understanding of what it is to be a citizen, how important it is, what voting's all about. The questions, I've got the questions here, sample civics questions that they'll get asked. They seem simple on the surface, but what you recognize when you start answering these questions about, well, how many states are there? Who is the government? How many branches are there? It reminds us this is what gives us our freedom. This is what makes us free people. And these questions and the answers to these questions are the answers to what it takes to be a free person.
And that's what will keep Abercrombie involved in this annual event.
It's been an overwhelming success, and as long as I'm in office, I'm going to keep doing it.
Coming up next on Hawaii Now, Congressman Neil Abercrombie honors the workers of Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard with a special tribute in the U.S. House.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard on its 100th anniversary. On this important centennial, I would like to commemorate the men and women who have served and continue to serve in the shipyard. In their honor, we have introduced HRES 1139. Congress established the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard on May 13, 1908, and it has grown from a coaling and repair station to being known in Hawaiian as the Nokaoi Shipyard, Nokaoi meaning the best, and is a national treasure that is strategically important to our nation and equally vital to Hawaii. During World War II, shipyard workers earned the motto, "We keep them fit to fight," by resurrecting the United States Pacific Fleet from the bottom of Pearl Harbor, helping to turn the tide of war at Midway, and maintaining the ships that would ultimately win victory at sea and sail triumphantly into Tokyo Bay. Throughout the decades, the shipyard has demonstrated its diverse capabilities by supporting America's space exploration, Antarctic expeditions, and national missile defense. It continues to support the United States Pacific Fleet as the largest ship repair facility between the west coast of the United States and the Far East, providing full-service maintenance for Pacific Fleet ships and submarines throughout the Asia-Pacific theater. The shipyard has become the largest single industrial employer in Hawaii and is the largest fully integrated military-civilian workforce involved in full-service shipyard work in the United States. The shipyard has a direct annual economic impact of more than $600 million in Hawaii, and through its apprentice engineer co-op and other student hire programs, provides extraordinary training, employment, and career opportunities for residents. Moreover, the shipyard has earned multiple national awards for its dedicated environmental stewardship and excellent safety programs, such as the prestigious Occupational Safety and Health Administration's Star Award in May of 2007. I want to recognize the 100th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard and congratulate the men and women who provide exceptional service to our military and indeed keep the Pacific Fleet fit to fight.
The Unified Shipyard team is committed to the on-time delivery of the high-quality submarine and surface ship maintenance at or below expected costs. The Pearl Harbor Shipyard's culture of continuous improvement and extremely high standards for safety, security, and environmental protection are paramount in maintaining the readiness of our fleet in our military's mission. Our nation would not have the world's most technologically advanced combat ships without the talent and dedication of the military-industrial team and the public and private shipyards. In honoring the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, I note that now, just as 100 years ago, both quality and quantity matter with respect to our naval fleet. That is why I voted to increase the funding for the Virginia-class submarine program to enable the construction of 2 nuclear-powered submarines per year by fiscal year 2010. It is again time for our nation to have a strategic outlook on the future role of our naval forces, and our Navy should establish a 313-ship fleet at a minimum to maintain our maritime dominance and forward presence around the globe. Moreover, such a fleet is only sustainable if we continue to invest in the people, skills, and infrastructure of our public shipyards. The 100th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor Shipyard is historically significant as the United States Navy continues to set the international standard of excellence. I urge your support in continuing to promote the role of shipbuilding and ship repair in defending our nation in the 21st century. maintaining the skills and strength of the industrial base, and providing the necessary resources for future construction and repair will enable our country to benefit from the tremendous scientific and military achievements as the ships that have been repaired in Pearl Harbor have for over half a century.
Madam Speaker, I want to compliment Mr. Whitman, and I want to thank him. He has outlined very, very well, I think, one of the most important issues that we face, and one that does not always receive the kind of attention that I think it warrants, namely our shipyards as a resource in the strategic interests, meeting the strategic interests of the United States. Our shipyards, both public and private, are crucial, vital, and necessary to not only to the defense of the United States, but to seeing to it that should we be called upon to exert military activity anywhere in the world, the backbone, the foundation of any naval presence in any such contingency is dependent on the professionalism, dedication, and perseverance of shipyards in this nation. He also mentioned, of course, the Virginia-class submarines, the nuclear submarines, and having observed the maintenance facilities at Hawaii with respect, in Hawaii rather, at Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, I can assure you and Mr. Whitman that those Virginia-class submarines will be welcome there, and that the repair and maintenance will be handled by people at the height of their professional capacity. The Metal Trades Council there, the Pearl Harbor supervisors, some of whom I believe are in the gallery today, observing what we're carrying out today in terms of the resolution. And so, yes, we're commemorating the 100th anniversary today of Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, but in doing so, we remind ourselves of its historic legacy, and we remind ourselves as well as to what the future may require of us here in the United States. The Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard stands ready to do its duty. Yes, Madam Speaker, I can tell you Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard will see that our naval forces are fit to fight.
I just wanted to thank the gentleman from Hawaii for his kind words, and I know that this nation looks forward to having our Virginia-class submarines being maintained fit to fight there at Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard. So I truly appreciate that. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Hawaii is recognized.
And Madam Speaker, I also yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Hawaii yields back the balance of his time. All time having been yielded, the question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to pass House Resolution 1139? Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.